Christopher Columbus injured some of the women on the island of Guadalupe. And when he was about to leave, he let go of some of the prisoners of war. He let them back on the island of Guadalupe in early April in the year 1496. He gave them gifts in a sort of way to apologize to them for their injuries that the Spanish inflicted on the people there. Yeah, sorry about what I did. Hope you accept some of these glass beads I have and broken cups. Anyways, who knows how grateful these women were of Guadalupe, how they really were at them in that particular moment. But that is what's happened. That has happened. That's what's written, at least. I mean, almost all of the island were women, besides a couple people like that were mentioned in other episodes, like a couple men that came through from another island, and some young boys. Then most of the prisoners that were on the ship were women. So if you think about it, a lot of those prisoners of war were fucking women. If you can imagine a bunch of drunk, lonely, and horny men having women in captivity on a ship, one can only assume what happened within those days between those two groups of people, right? I'm not hinting to you of anything particularly, but you could just imagine. Maybe evident to what had happened due to the type of world they lived in during that time. And if you are still in wonder, review some of my older episodes. That's how fucking people were back then. Not everything was fine and dandy in those early centuries of conquest and war and all that shit. There wasn't a decade of fucking peace on any motherfucking continent during those centuries that surrounded the time of Christopher Columbus. Just remember, they're human. You humans suck. They lived at a time that forces were fighting one another for land, women, slaves, wealth. I may be wrong about Columbus and his crew, but I think I'm mostly right. They had all those women aboard. Just to fucking imagine. So he made it right with these women. At least in his perspective he did. And then he took off back to Castile on April 20th in the year 1496. And he wrote that the sea was calm. They didn't have a lot of help from the wind to make it back to Castile very quickly. And before they left, Columbus ensured that he had enough food for the trip, but the slow pace going back to Castile made them all run low on rations, right? They didn't have enough food. They're like, man, we run out of food. No, the trip was going to take that long. And by the month of May, on May 20th, they recorded that the men were so hungry at sea that some of those men, the Christians, suggested eating the Indians. They said that they wanted to emulate what the Carib people do. Hey, man, you remember those Caribs that eat legs and necks? I want to do that now because I'm hungry. Columbus is like, fuck that. Do not eat any of these Indians. You know, there was the young, curious man from Jamaica that was on board with them. He's like, don't eat them. And there was the Cazique woman and her daughter that were on board along with the other Indians, either Taino or Carib. And the woman from Guadalupe, she didn't want her daughter to go alone to Castile, so she wanted to go along. Columbus is like, don't fucking eat them. And so when they finally got close to land, a few groups of people aboard had ideas about where they were at. Nobody knew where the fuck they were. They're like, dude, when are we going to get there, man? But Columbus wrote in his book that he suspected they were near the Azores because of some evidence of some fucking seaweed in the water or something. Is what he had seen before during his last trip to the area. He was like, we're close. I see the seaweed. It's the seaweed from the Azores. But his fucking comrades laughed and joked at him. It's like saying that Columbus was wrong about the location. But he ended up being right. He's like, see, bitches? See, I'm right again, bitch. It's going to be a strange episode. Going to put in all these different ideas. Day to day, Christopher Columbus. And just give some ideas of what was going on in those years and months in different regions. and people that are associated with ideas and things, and some not. Maybe I should have like some intro music. I got my guitar right here. Let's move the microphone down a little bit. What kind of music should we play? No. Maybe I should play louder music. Let me... I haven't played guitar in such a long time. Fuck the guitar music. Fuck the intro. Fuck you guys. Just gonna fucking talk it out. Anyways, that was your intro music. The only time I can ever hear that again. Where were we at? When the Christians finally made it to Castile, the Christians were well received by everyone. They're like, you motherfuckers made it back. Welcome back. Welcome back. There's like, you know, people talk a lot of shit about Christopher Columbus and the guys that went to America, how they were fucking hated, and everybody's like, what a fucking doofus. That's how they make it out to seem, because they don't want you to like them guys, right? They want to make them out to look like idiots and assholes and so on and so forth, right? But here in the books, it was written that we're going to get into this stuff. It's going to get a little dirty. Like I said. A lot of Christopher Columbus's writings were lost, but like the original documents were lost, but his son and Bartolome de las Casas took his book and rewrote it in their own words, I'm guessing. I mean, they probably did a word for word, maybe, or paraphrased, or translated. So that's what we got now. So here's from what is Christopher Columbus's son described it. They made it back to Castile, and they were well received by everyone. Now, I'm paraphrasing, so just to let you know, because I'm not reading from a fucking book, right? Not reading from the exact document, because that would be like illegal, right? So anyways, Columbus met with the Catholic sovereigns right around the same time that there was a wedding event going on. A lot of notable people attended the wedding, and even the son of Columbus was there. So it is likely that Christopher Columbus was there as well to showcase his Indians that he brought along with him from the Americas to Castile, to España. And all the things that he had also with him, he brought to them from America with him. It was an eventful wedding party that may have showcased the Indians and animals that Columbus brought with him from America, and some of the gold stuff that he had. Some of the gold that was found weighing some 30 fucking pound nuggets, huh? He might have been at that party, the wedding party, showing that shit off, right? It's not certain whether or not Columbus attended this wedding between Ferdinand and Isabella's son, Don Juan, and Princess Margaret. Not to be mistaken with a lot of guys named Don Juan, right? But not to be mistaken with Don Juan of Austria, who fought the Muslim Ottomans in the 16th century. Yeah, everybody's fighting the fucking Muslims. Yeah. Anyways, this Don Juan, also known as Prince John Asturias, was one of the three people, one after the other, who married Margaret and died before they could grow old with her. Don Juan died just 6 months after Margaret and him were married. Fucking craziness. She barely got to know the guy. Don Juan was her second marriage, and they were married on April 3rd in the year 1497. Don Juan died on October 4th in 1497 at the age of 19. 19 years old and died after marriage. He died of some fever, I guess. Margaret was only 17 years old and already widowed twice at that point. Fuck, man. Don Juan, or we could call him just John, right? So just John was the only son of Ferdinand of Aragon and Isabella of Castile, who outlived their son. Not everyone died young. The parents lived, but a lot of people did die young. It is possible that Columbus and crew were present at the time of this awesome wedding. Back to the wedding story, right? The Indians, the animals, the American artifacts may have been a sight to see at the wedding, which probably showcased Columbus's stuff along with food, games, competitions, and a mess of other things that were going on during that wedding. It was said to have been grand. People talked about it for a while up until the groom died 6 months later. Then it all turned to darkness. They're like, bitches, I ain't talking about it anymore. The wedding took place in Burgos, which was an important city in the region that Columbus made his way to. Burgos was an important cultural and religious center at the time. So it was kind of like having a wedding at Times Square or the Millennium Park in Chicago, right? Something like that, I guess. We believe that the wedding was held at the Cathedral of Burgos, which was one of the most notable and interesting churches of the area of Spain at that time. And the wedding was an important time to showcase the significance of the union between the Habsburg and the Spanish royal familias. The wedding was somewhat a way to solidify the alliances between these two groups into a union, possibly to fight the French and other people, right? Muslims and other bitches. The wedding may have consisted of music, dances, games, and a lot of food, tournaments, and kissing. Maybe not. The wedding was like kind of hard to distinguish whether or not it was a celebration of the couple getting married, or was it a showcase of the strength, power, and wealth of the two royal familias coming together in a single day, or several days. The wedding celebration could have lasted several fucking days. Be like, dude, Columbus could have been like, man, I've been drunk for 4 days, man. You want to play some horseshoes? He's like, dude, I could barely walk. The Habsburgs and Spain were of the two most powerful European dynasties at that fucking time. A lot of people from the area probably attended that wedding to witness the grandeur. The popular foods at the time may have been that were there could have been a bunch of different fish like eel, trout, and pike, and they had maybe like peacocks, beef, pork, lamb, venison, a bunch of other foods that were prepared at the time to impress the guests, right? You're not gonna fucking order a bunch of dog shit to eat when you're trying to impress somebody, right? I mean, if you're gonna have some friends over, you could probably fucking order some fucking fast food to be delivered if you just want to make it quick and easy. But they had some fucking cooks that cooked up some meats and shaped them to resemble animals, right? They were really weird about shit like that. And they also could have had some other things that were elaborate edible sculptures that were made of sugar or something that depicted scenes or people of the time period that were carved into this fucking food. Might have been an awesome party. I think people talked about it for a long time, up until the groom's death. And everybody just stayed silent. And it's written from the notes here that Christopher Columbus's son was at the party. Hernando Colon was a royal page to the Spanish sovereigns of the time. And his brother as well, too, right? But he most likely was carrying robes and running around doing various things for the king and queen. Maybe fetching some wine. You hear the fucking people banging on the ceiling. They never stop. He was maybe fetching them fucking fish and wine or so whatever the fuck they wanted, like, hey, Paige, go get me something. Clip my toenails and go get me some fucking wine. He was like, maybe go feed the cows or milk the chickens, would you little bitch? Okay, sir. Okay, your highness. He wrote that he was there and that he mentioned that he didn't want to name all the people who attended. Maybe he was already bored with the situation. I don't know. I don't know why he said that in the writings. Anyways, people, who else maybe also attended the party was Don Juan de Fonseca. And Columbus's son, Hernando, wrote that Fonseca was an archdeacon of Seville and a bishop of Burgos who hated Columbus at the time. And Hernando said that this possible hatred or differences between the two men, his dad and fucking Fonseca, must have risen from the jealousy of Fonseca, who envied the popularity and recognition of Columbus for all he had done and how people treated him. That's at least this perspective we got here, right? Another perspective is that Fonseca was in constant difference with Columbus's autonomy in the New World. And Fonseca was said to have suggested to Columbus that the Spanish sovereigns and cabinet were to be the sole fucking rulers of the area, in which Columbus did not accept, leaving Fonseca angry. He's like, dude, you ain't the fucking leader. We're the leader. I call the shots, you bitch. Columbus is like, go fuck yourself. I don't know what their exact conversations were. Nobody will ever know. Nobody had fucking cell phones to videotape anything back then. You never know. You never know their conversations. They could have been swearing at each other, or it could have just been like fake fucking conversations until they walked away, both fucking giving each other the fingers behind each other's backs, right? So this Fonseca was a significant player in politics and administration with the Catholic sovereigns. And Fonseca was a high-ranked individual who apparently had enough pull to keep enough fucking say and influence to keep Columbus from returning to the American islands as quickly as Columbus wanted to. Fonseca, if he could have kept Columbus completely away from America, he would have. Because Fonseca managed a lot of the remote territories that Spain had been occupying. And therefore, a couple of ships left Spain for the Americas that February, while Columbus was left behind. He's like, see you later, bitches. Now, this Fonseca came from a somewhat wealthy family to where he eventually became Bishop of Cordoba and then the Archbishop of Rosano. Now, this in the writings that I'm looking at here, Hernando Colon mentioned that this Fonseca was like an archbishop to Burgos and Seville. So anyways, this guy Fonseca was a pretty high-ranked dude who was probably well-respected and listened to. This guy fought against Columbus, about various things, often trying to take Columbus down or to stop him in his tracks. He's like, right there, bitch. He hated the way Ferdinand and Isabella treated him so kindly. He's like, why the fuck did the king and queen treat Columbus so nicely when they should be giving me all the fucking attention? I don't know. He didn't say that. I'm just making that up. But it was written that he did hate this. He seemed to be like the quite jealous type. Even though Fonseca had never been to America, he sat in his administrative position in España, while practicing his hate speech towards Christopher Columbus. There is a chance, though, that both Fonseca and Columbus were at the grand wedding, back to what I was talking about, since probably most notable people were present at the event at the time. There's not a lot of documentation that specifies everyone that was there at the event, but probably because after the death of the groom, everyone lost interest in the greatness of it all and said, fuck it, we ain't going to write about it anymore. The point, but there was a lot of competitions and fucking bullshit going on at the wedding, a lot of fun times, Columbus may have beat Fonseca in a cockfight, right? We may never know. It's possible, though. You know, Columbus wasn't the only person that got heat from this dude. It may have been said that Fonseca had also been an asshole to some colonial governors as well. We may never know who was in the right, or Fonseca did have enough influence to push colonial policies overseas. So he was definitely not an NPC by any means. Fonseca was kind of like a control freak, something like today's Democrats, you know. Fonseca pushed for centralized government to where Spain would make all the calls and decisions from the homeland in Spain to the American islands. He wanted all the colonial movements to be tightly monitored and regulated by the crown. And his ideas led to the making Casa de Contratación, which in English it means the house of trade. And this Casa de Contratación regulated commerce and emigration to the Americas. Now, this Fonseca was in control of a lot. He picked who was able to go to America and what they were able to bring and what was needed, so on and so forth. And with this, Fonseca played a role in keeping Columbus from traveling back to America at that time in 1497. Now, Columbus was already giving the sovereigns his excuse that he was doing what he needed to do in America to keep peace with the Spanish crown in mind and in their best interest. But Fonseca was a dick to a lot of people, so Fonseca hated Columbus. But also, he was also harsh to the governors of the colony, who Fonseca himself was in charge of appointing these people as governors in areas in the Americas. So Fonseca appointed these people so that he and the crown had more control rather than Columbus himself having top authority. So they wanted to get Columbus out and get him in, right? See how this is getting a little weird, right? Fonseca, with the said bad reputation of Columbus, Fonseca himself didn't look out for the Indians' best interest either. Fonseca supported the act of the encomienda system that was harsh to the Indians, in the sense that the Christians were able and had the right under Spanish law to extract labor and tax from the Indians. The Spanish did give in return, though, like the Muslims did to non-Muslims. The Christians overworked these Indians, and they're like, you work hard for us, and we'll protect you. And the Indians are like, protect us from who? Protect you from us. Oh, I see. Yeah, bitches. The Europeans also told the Indians that through the forced labor, the Indians would benefit because the Spanish would pay them back by teaching them about Christianity. They're like, oh, well, PD, fucking great. Bitch ass. What a nice fucking trade-off, bitches. And of course, everything sounds good on paper, but you give an inch, they take a mile. And so the Indians began to be overworked and exploited in some harsh ways only one could imagine from that time period. Now, this Fonseca played a big role in working the Indians hard and gaining wealth from the Americas to be sent back to Spain to enrich themselves. Yeah, Fonseca, the guy that hated Columbus, wanted to take Columbus down. This bitch was doing the shit that he fucking said other people did. Kind of like the Democrats, right? Kind of like the left wing, right? They call everybody Nazis, but themselves are the fucking fascists, right? Kind of weird how that works throughout history, doesn't it? Anyways, so this Fonseca dude said that all this shit was going on, and he then himself was part of it. So Fonseca was keeping Columbus from going back to America. Think about it, bitches. Who are you going to fucking point fingers at now, you cunts? Think about it. Fonseca was also a guy that promoted sending people to America to keep permanent settlements abroad in America. And like I said, he had picked the the right people to send to America to help colonize America and help it thrive, right? He sent families and farmers, carpenters, religious people, bitches and motherfuckers, just to make this new permanent colonization in America that would benefit Spain, all in all, right? So Fonseca pushed for it to happen, right? It's the way the fucking works, right? Okay, anyways, enough about this Fonseca. He was an enemy of Columbus. So all you little kids learned this in school, didn't you? Didn't you learn that Columbus was hated by people? Well, now you know. One person by name, Fonseca. Fonseca. He wasn't like some peaceful dude in today's standards, right? Nobody fucking was. It's all about power and control, bitches. Women and wealth, land and riches, gold and bitches. Then there's a guy, Bobadilla. And Bobadilla is usually the name we hear when we think of Christopher Columbus getting taken down. Down. When we refer to the idea of harshness of Columbus, we either hear two different names usually, and that's Bartolome de las Casas and Bobadilla. People refer to these two guys a lot, only by name, right? For example, they will say, Bobadilla said so. Or they'll quote something from Bartolome de las Casas. But Bartolome de las Casas rarely ever said anything bad about Columbus. Bartolome actually said that things that didn't really start to get bad in America until after Columbus was already attacked and judged and so on and so forth, right? They'd be like, this Bobadilla guy's fucking getting Columbus arrested. They're like, why? Because he did some bad shit. What did he do? What did he say? I don't know what he said. Go get the documents. How come they're not available? How come they're not easily, fucking available? Oh, this guy wrote about it. Well, fuck that guy. I want to see the actual document. Got documents for everybody else? How come not this guy? What's the secret? Huh? Anyways, we're gonna go dig deeper into it all. Right now, we're just pulling from a few sources in chronological order by area or epoch. So let's get back to the writings of Hernando Colón. Hernando. What happened back in America? He said Columbus came back to Spain sometime in late summer of 1496. This was his second visit back to, before his third trip, back to Europe. And so think about it. If Columbus was back by the summer of 1496, and the wedding was on April 3rd in the year 1497, which was in early spring, 2 seasons later, Columbus was on land for several months at that time. And when he met up with the Catholic sovereigns in Burgos, they were there for the wedding. So I assume Columbus was at the fucking wedding also, as well along with his enemy Fonseca and Bobadilla. Yeah, it's fucking interesting shit. Columbus must have shown all the Indians to the king and queen, along with whoever else was there. He also had a bunch of gold. He's like, look at this, guys. Look what I got. Fucking gold pieces, some of them 30 pounds. People, you know what's interesting? People like to say that there was not a lot of gold in the Americas when Columbus came. But how often have you or anyone else stumbled upon a 30-pound piece of fucking gold on an island? Probably never. But these guys got a lot of it. Otherwise, they would have given up on the mining and trying to profit from the area. No gold here, guys. Let's go home. Some islands had more gold than other areas, but there was gold there. And of course, over the years and decades, the metal findings in the area could have been exhausted. They're like, man, we fucking dug up everything. He's just like, keep digging, bitches. It's like, dude, you can only dig so fucking far. Things started getting rough later in the years. After Columbus. Anyways. Anyways, that's another thing, right? A lot of podcasts and writings and videos talk about how Columbus was not liked. Like, people like to make Columbus out to be some kind of annoying dude that the king and queen finally gave him what he wanted after they were sick of hearing from him. Like, fine, take the boat, leave. Now, this Fonseca was an enemy of Columbus and hated that he was liked by Isabella. How could Columbus be hated by the sovereigns if Fonseca hated that Columbus was liked by them? Doesn't make a lot of sense, does it, bitches? Anyways, we have to dig deeper, don't we? Don't we? And there's another thing here. Queen Isabella had a childhood friend that she grew up with named Beatrice de Bobadilla. This woman had been in Isabella's life for a long fucking time. They grew up together, little kids, right? Little teens and so on and so forth. And they went out to various towns together and markets and shit and hung out together when they were kids, when they were young. And this Bobadilla broad was at Isabella's side during her reign. And she was an important woman who was likely to also be connected to Columbus as well. And after Beatrice's husband, Hernan Peraza, died, she became governor of La Gomera in the Canary Islands. And so they say that Columbus had visited her in the Canary Islands. Now, there had been rumors circulating that Columbus could have had sexual relations with this Bobadilla girl. Or at least some type of romantic experience together. They could have held hands and kissed by the seashore, right? She was said to be very beautiful, and Columbus was well-liked and charming. Well, maybe talking his way down her pants, right? But that is still all just ideas and rumors, right? Maybe they did. Why not? She was, this Bobadilla, Beatrice de Bobadilla, was friends with Isabella. And likely together a lot of times, and Columbus was there. So it could have been a whole fucking circle, all right? Circle, fucking jerk. There is no evidence that this Beatrice de Bobadilla is related to Francisco de Bobadilla, who arrested Columbus, right? But, that's why I thought at first, it was like, see, the dude was mad that Columbus fucked his niece, right? So that, but it's not true. And maybe it is, but I don't think so. Just a coincidence. Remember, we acknowledged the idea of power and control. So not only was Fonseca trying to get Columbus out of the way so that he could do their own harm on the Indians to benefit themselves in Spain, but Francisco de Bobadilla also wanted Columbus out of America. And when Columbus was taken away from America by Bobadilla, guess who became governor? That's right. Bobadilla took the position, right? Got him fired and then took the job. And no, they didn't stop exploiting the natives of the islands. Didn't become peaceful then. The harsh treatment and forced culture on the Indians didn't stop when Columbus was taken away, but rather it changed hands and got worse through time. But all those specifics, we're going to get back to later, right? As we move on through episodes, we're still here in the spring of 1497 in this episode. So I want to concentrate on 1497, all the happenings, all the bullshit that was going on in that year, right? It was almost a year before Captain Pedro Fernandez Coronel took a couple ships back to America, leaving Christopher Columbus behind in the year 1497. Remember, this Pedro Fernandez was a regent that was left behind in Hispaniola during the time that Columbus traveled to Jamaica and other islands. And then when he returned to the fucking Hispaniola, there was a bunch of riots and bullshit going on, which led to the fucking battle, this and that. Right? Remember? If not, go back a couple episodes. So yes, this Pedro was there to witness and possibly promote that happening of Columbus not going. And after Columbus gave that guy in that position, that guy leaves Columbus in Spain. But that choice may have likely been from Fonseca's plan. It probably was, you know it. So Columbus stayed in Medina del Campo during the time that he was left behind in Spain. You know, I met this girl the other day in Chicago when I was doing street photography. Me and Tim were out downtown. And then the girl, I put her on my Instagram. You know, I put all of my street photography on Instagram. And I saw on her Instagram she was playing guitar. And so I know that song. So I'm going to play that while I talk about this time Columbus had in Medina del Campo, right? Columbus came to Medina del Campo. Yeah, he had a lot of good times. He had a lot of rough times. In Medina del Campo. Now this place, the Medina del Campo was, why the fuck did I do that? I'm going to just change it up a little bit. Put the guitar back down. Just another stupid idea I got. Ideas just come to my head. They just come in and they go. Columbus stayed in Medina del Campo during the time he was left behind in Spain. He's like, I'm here, having fun. In this area, had a lot of things going on there. You know, a lot of people doing a lot of. I think even Isabella and Bobadilla girl were there way back in the fucking day too. I gotta check those. Don't quote me, but I read that a long time ago that they were taking like little fucking trips there. Anyways, let's get back to it. There's a lot of politics and fairs, food, and people in the area at the time. So Columbus may have had a good time while he was waiting there in Medina del Campo. And Ferdinand and Isabella held court in this area for some time. Sometimes Columbus would be able to visit them with his ideas that didn't take off until he returned to America in the year 1498. Now, this Fonseca and both Bobadillas may have also been present in the area at the time as well. Even though they had their differences, it is very likely that the sovereigns gave lodging to Christopher Columbus again. And Hernando noted that Columbus was well taken care of during that time in Medina del Campo. Columbus could have possibly been in a palace or held in a mansion by the sovereigns until he was able to go back to America. Fonseca probably hated that too. But Hernando Colon said that Fonseca was one of the chief instigators, right? The chief plotters that turned the king and queen their favor against Columbus and towards their own group of fucking people, right? Their own bias, their own ideology. So Christopher Columbus' son, Diego, and Hernando Colon were both pages to the groom that died. So not everyone in the Spanish court hated Columbus because his fucking kids were there. But now we are starting to recognize some troubles behind the scenes for Columbus, right? Anyways, there are documents that prove that people in the high court complained about Columbus. And those documents supposedly exist, but they are not easily accessible. Why not? Because they are so important. They don't want anyone to know the truth, right? Why not? What do you think the truth is, right? And it's hard to find some of these sources firsthand rather than someone paraphrasing or talking about it secondhand, third hand, fourth hand. And I try to avoid those writings if I can. Otherwise, I do what I can until further research is dug up. Okay? There's a Spanish website called MCN Biografia.com, which is titled La Web de las Biografías, that has a biography of this Juan Rodriguez de Fonseca. Juan Rodriguez de Fonseca. It is said that this Fonseca promoted double marriage between Margaret of Austria and Philip the Handsome, who were the children of the German emperor named Maximilian. And these two people were marrying Prince John and Prince Joanna. who were the children of the Catholic monarchs. And Hernando de la Vera pushed Fonseca to promote and negotiate the marriage by traveling to Burgundy in the year 1497. And with the successful outcomes, Ferdinand and Isabella promoted Fonseca to where he had become well respected and trusted by the sovereigns, right? And promoted. See what I got, bitches? It's all on who you know and who you give your daughter to for marriage. Fonseca promoted the double marriage, and Ferdinand and Isabella had 7 fucking children, to which only two of the children that died in their early age, didn't make it to adulthood. And in this wedding that Columbus may have been at, with Prince John died 6 months after that marriage. And of the other children, there was Princess Joanna, who was called crazy. She was locked up for the rest of her fucking life until she died. She was said to have been highly intelligent, but then she went mad after she got married. She went crazy after she got married. Her husband probably argued and cheated on her a lot. Possibly. Maybe she was just crazy. It was said that she was very depressed, dark, and gloomy, so they locked her up, locked that bitch up. We don't know if her husband committed her to the crazy house or to a confined room and threw away the key for his benefit. Or was she truly sick in the head and needed to be locked up? I don't know. There is a chance that she didn't need to be locked up, though, right? You never know. So Joanna of Castile is referred to as Joanna the Mad. They're like, hey, you want to marry my crazy daughter? No, not really. But people, hey, listen, she's a nice girl. She'll take care of you. Like, no, dude. No, she won't. People tend to say that all women are crazy. That saying doesn't help, though, right? Now, if a guy is truly with a truly ill woman, then he has to know where to draw the line. A person can't live with a fucking demonic woman with the excuse that all women are crazy. Like he said, therefore I'll take the pain and I'll deal with it. But these marriages promoted the ties between Spain and Habsburgs at the time. So the Habsburgs were a German family who ruled Austria and several other countries at the time. At other times, right? And they were an important people to be allied with. So that's why Spain was like, man, we got to get on their side. But anyways, back to Ferdinand and Isabella's children. Their first child was a girl named Isabella, who witnessed the war and gossip from her time of her birth. And then she ended up marrying Prince Afonso, who was the son of the King of Portugal. So when she was young, they were at war with Portugal. Now she's sleeping with their son, right? And there was a treaty of Alcacovas that may have been part of this marriage. And Castile and Portugal were no longer at war. Then she's like, now she's sleeping with the dude. And Isabella was well liked and loved in Portugal. She spoke Portuguese very well, they said. Since she spent many years in Portugal as a child. But her husband eventually died in an accident to where Isabella blamed God for killing him because God was mad at the Portuguese for giving refuge to the Jews after Spain banished them from the country. She's like, you motherfuckers. So anyways, Isabella was heartbroken and depressed and starved herself, among other things, because of all this. She said she would never marry again. But when King Manuel wanted to marry her, but years later, when this King Manuel wanted to marry her, her parents tried to get him to marry the other daughter instead, named Maria. But he didn't want her. He's like, I want Isabella. But Isabella didn't want him. So Isabella agreed. Eventually, later, Isabella finally agreed. But she said, I'll marry you as long as you kick out all the fucking Jews out of Portugal. And eventually he did. He's like, Jewish people, sorry. You see that girl over there? She won't give me any unless I kick you all out. So you guys all have to leave now. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. So he kicked them all out. What a bitch, right? Then he married her. So what fucking women do? They make men do crazy shit, right? That's for sure. Thanks, Isabella. She must have been really great, huh? Better than the Sister Maria. Although after Isabella died in 1498, Manuel possibly thought that marrying Maria was better than nothing, so he's like, fuck it. And so Maria, then the sister of Isabella, the daughter of Fernanda Isabella, Maria became the Queen of Portugal. And then Maria and Manuel, who didn't want her in the beginning, ended up having fucking 10 children together. I guess maybe she was good and bad, I don't know. They just couldn't stop. I wonder if after sex, they would lay in bed and she would constantly ask him why he didn't marry her first. And he was like, I don't want to talk about it. She's like, you don't want to marry me, so you married my sister instead. Then she died, now you married me? What's that all about? He's like, shut up and get pregnant. He liked her because there's one thing that they did get along with, because she supported her husband in defeating the Muslim Mamluks and destroying Mecca and conquering the Muslims from Jerusalem, like Christopher Columbus wanted to do. She was into that, and so was he. Columbus was not the only guy that wanted to fight the Muslims out of Europe and Africa and the trade wars and so on and so forth, right? So this guy loved that sense about her, right? Kind of like tribal, right? Right wing and left wing these days, right? Kind of like that back then too, but it was more religious. And they were a lot more brutal back then. So he ended up having a lot of sex with her, right? She was pregnant all the time, they say. She was so exhausted that she eventually went a little crazy, supposedly, they say. And then eventually died. Yeah, she had a bunch of fucking kids. And finally, the last child of Ferdinand and Isabella was Catherine of Aragon, who became Queen of England. All these fucking children became somebody. They married in royalty or whatever. Alliances and unifications through marriage. But the war between Portugal and the Mamluks was a victory for Portugal to take over the spice trade, in which the Ottoman Empire got involved and fucked up the Mamluks as well. The Mamluks were a diminishing power in the time since they were at war with the fucking Mongolian people from the year 1260 to 1323. Just fucked up everything for them. Killed a lot of the population and raped a lot of the women. The Mamluks were originally fucking slaves that converted to Islam and grew up to be some badass military people who guarded the Sultan. And who enslaved these guys? What about the women? You know what they did with the women, right? A lot of those Mamluks had a bunch of wives. And the reason they had a bunch of women is for two reasons. Because the flavor may get boring after a while. And then they want to impregnate as many women as they can. Just like the old days. The more children, the more help, and the bigger the army. Man, just imagine going into a room with a bunch of captured women that you own and doing anything you want with them. They must have had a crazy fucking lifestyle then. This was going on during the time of Columbus. Yeah, in 1497 and years around that time. 1497 was a crazy fucking year. Columbus was held back for a year of traveling to America. because of some jerk that was talking hate speech about him. I never, I don't usually use that phrase. I just think it's funny to use now, so I'm going to use it. Hate speech. Such a black term. But anyways, other parts of the world, they had battles and wars. There was fucking shit going on everywhere at the time. There was, in that year, the Polish people were fighting the Muslims out of their country. I got a friend I got a Polish friend that's been proud of being Polish ever since I've known him for so many years now. He just found out that he's 60% Arabic because the Muslims invaded Poland, right? So, yeah, isn't that interesting? Yeah, there was a lot of Turkish people, but like when the Berbers or the Moroccans invaded Spain, when the black guys invaded Spain, the black Muslims, the Asiatic people followed. It wasn't just exclusive black or Asian Muslims, or white. They were all friends, kind of. They were segregated, but they mingled, in war and conquest and cities and so on and so forth. There was a lot of war and conquest in the year 1497. That year alone. There was a lot of weird shit that went on through the world at the time. With the Mamluks and the Ottomans and the fucking Germans and the fucking Spanish and the Indians, so on and so forth. It was the year that fucking King Manuel of Portugal made an edict that demanded all the Jewish people to leave Portugal or convert to Christianity. Crazy fucking times, isn't it? And people have the internet now, so a lot of people can see like all the crazy things that happen throughout the world today. And they're like, look at all the crazy shit that's going on today. Must be the end of the world. But shit's been going on for fucking centuries. For thousands, hundreds, thousands years. Throughout history. And from the evidence that we have in writing and documents, there was more craziness in the past than there is nowadays. Yeah, we got BLM and Antifa and fucking radical leftist that destroy shit. And democratic fucking ideologies to where the cops ain't doing shit and crime is fucking rampant. Fucking inflation is up, or things are getting pretty fucked up, but things were worse back in history. Things are hard now, but things were harder back in the day as well. America was doing great at a time where a guy at a factory could support his whole family, buy a car and a house, just from working in a little stupid factory. Nowadays, he'd have to get a nice job, and his wife has to get a nice job, so they could put their money together and get a house and live kind of average. Back in the day, back when America was great, they didn't have to do that. But before that time, things were harder. The power, control, greed, women, sex, gold, and a mess of other scams and blood and bullshit has filled all of human history. Christopher Columbus was aiming to conquer Jerusalem and take it away from the Muslims. They'd conquered Jerusalem in the year 638, just a few years after the Prophet Muhammad died. In order to do that, all that stuff, he needed some money. He needed some manpower. He said, I'm going to get it in fucking America. Well, initially he thought he was going to Asia and he was going to talk to the great Khan and convert him to Christianity and all of his people and bring them as a fucking military fucking help to conquer the Muslims out of Jerusalem. Maybe Constantinople as well, right? But in order to do that, he needed money and manpower. And he hoped to gain it in America, which he thought was Asia. And at the time, Spain had just kicked the Muslims out of Spain a few years prior to that. So Spain was at a financial loss at the time, since they used a lot of their wealth to fight off the Muslims. So Columbus hoped to get wealth in America to fight off Muslims. And to eat, you know how it is. But now he had people in the Spanish court who were working against him. There's never any fucking peace. I got fucking black people banging on my ceilings as we speak right now. There's always someone stepping on someone else's toes. That's life with fellow humans. You're all bitches. Somebody's always fucking up something. You have a couple good days and one bad day, or a bunch of bad days and maybe a good day. There's never fucking peace. It's a fucking daydream. There's always some kind of bullshit going on. It's not a fucking simple story, is it? So, anyways, Columbus eventually goes back to America. But we're going to keep that for the next episode. I just wanted to show the beginning of the takedown of Christopher Columbus and his ideas. The aim and the goal was still there, though. You know, the Christians fought off a lot of the invading Muslims at the time, and in Africa and Europe as well. And I just wanted to have an episode to show what was going on during that time throughout the world, and what Columbus had to deal with, what Europe had to deal with, what humans have to deal with. Anyways, send this episode to your friends and your enemies, and they will hate you for it. Adios.